Ready to elevate your self-care game? Boss Gal Beauty Bar is a modern med spa offering everything from cosmetic injectables, lasers and microneedling, to medical-grade facials and skincare. Conveniently located in Clintonville, Grandview, Powell, and Easton, making self-care a priority has never been easier. Use code CROFT for $25 off your first visit. Chef Nikki, welcome to the Carrie Croft Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, for sure.
You may be the coolest person I've had on so far.
No way.
I'm thinking so. And you don't know this, but one of my dreams since I started the Carrie Croft Show, especially since I moved in here, was to have someone light up a joint.
Oh,
and
really?
Yes.
Oh, really?
I was envisioning it being some kind of like hip hop. Like in my mind, I was thinking it was going to be either Crazy Bone, Busy Bone. That's just how I had it in my head. It still may happen.
I mean, it could happen.
It still may happen.
They're from Ohio, so that still could get.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm good with like the variants of this because you're Chef Nikki. And you're going to be lighting up a joint here.
I am going to be lighting up a joint in
your
your
show. I'm so excited.
today.
I'm going to get vicariously high because that's what happens to me.
Yes, we're going to hotbox on Carrie's show today. We're going to hotbox. We're hotboxing. We're going to smoke this whole room out.
All right, I'm into that.
Yeah, my dog probably gets a lot of contact high.
I love that.
I think he enjoys it at this point. He just kind of like
of course he does. He's like, when's she gonna light up?
Lays in it. He's 13, so I'm pretty sure he's like, fuck it, let's just run it. He enjoys being high. So, yeah. Anyway.
So walk me through, though. You were just smelling something. What?
Yeah, these are just... So, in my travels in Thailand, you often would see people just, like, having something in their hand, smelling it. And it's usually just... And they put it back, or they have these little sticks that they kind of stick up their nose that have mint and, like, herbal things in there. So, this has, like... It's called a compound herbal inhaler, or it has camphor. It's got all kinds of here. Just smell it. It just kind of opens your nose up and just. It's like Vicks Vapor Rub and
it is.
Thing.
It's
but
lovely.
It's like it is lovely.
It's delightful.
But it helps kind of like reset and just kind of refresh my nose or my senses.
How often are we sniffing this?
I sniff it like periodically whenever I feel like I need it.
Like on a daily, is it a daily sniff, or are we talking multiple times a day?
Sniff. I keep it in my car. I have one in my house. I have one in my backpack. It's really good on the plane though.
It kind of gives you like a boop.
Yes, it gives you that. And then if there's something stinky too, it'll give you that too.
There's so
like
much...
on the plane, I'm like, yeah, that helps.
Isn't the plane smells are...
Yeah, they're
the
weird.
Worst. It's
they are the
so
worst.
weird. You can't think too much about it.
No, you can't really think that much about it. But I definitely keep lavender in my backpack just in case I got to do one of these. Helps me sleep. But every now and then you just have smells.
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, I'm a mother, but children also smell. Like, sometimes you have stinky kids.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
It sounds crazy, but kids stink. I don't know.
They absolutely, especially little boys.
Yeah.
Now, before you walk me through exactly what sort of strain or whatever you've got going on in this.
Yeah.
Okay, before you walk me through that.
Okay.
Chef Nikki, you fly under the radar to me because like all of a sudden it was like you were dropped into my universe. And I'm like, who is this Chef Nikki that you speak of? And now I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So you have something called the High End Affair.
I do.
You're Dave Chappelle's chef. You live in UA, so you have this like Ohio grounded thing, but then you go and put on these events for, I mean, you're talking Snoop Dogg, we're talking like the people that I, have fantasized about all the time in my mind, like I'm hanging out with Snoop Dogg. You're doing that. That's your job.
It is.
And so I have so many questions. So many questions.
We can get into them.
And we will. We are going to get into it. We may not get to all of them today, but I have a feeling this will not be your only appearance on the Carrie Croft. Something tells me.
Something tells me.
Okay, so that's you in a nutshell, in a very small nutshell. So what the hell did you just roll up?
So I just rolled up some weed from a brand that I love. They're out of California called 710 Labs. But they're one of my favorite California brands. To be honest with you, I don't remember the strain because I take my weed and I put it in different little like to-go compartments because I'm just a weed smoker. I don't really smoke by, I do smoke by the strain, but I smoke by the heaviness. You know what I mean? Like
Help
I like
me with that.
I like
for the
really dank, heavy weed.
Okay, because you got to talk to me like I'm
yes.
a total novice.
Yeah. Well, some people like if you're a novice or a person that loves like the experience of like maybe a dispensary or the experience of just trying weed and finding your way, then in layman's terms, there are different types of strains, you know, that would appeal to you in certain ways. But for me, I just smoke really heavy because my tolerance is really high, which has been built up over years and years of just being high. I'm more than often high than I'm not high. I would say that I'm probably the least high when I wake up, unless I took a bunch of edibles the night before.
Right.
But yeah, so I smoke pretty heavy just because, and I smoke very indica heavy or hybrid heavy just because that's just where my body sits. It agrees with that. And I still smoke when I work. You know, like I'm not one of those people that like are going to smoke and not be productive. I'm actually my most productive if I've smoked because, yeah, I can settle into a groove.
It's funny you say that, and I totally agree with you because I have certain friends who loved weed, and I think it's because they would like clean their house and for me, if I smoked, I'd be like, where are the ramen noodles and who everyone hates me and this existence, am I even like my brain goes, so maybe I just haven't been given the right concoction. It's
possible you could have had weed that might have been also too heavy for you. And you might need to go with a lighter, more sativa, more kind of like airier high where it's not so like heavy on the body and maybe not so heavy on the conscience of like you overthinking things. I can say only I've never experienced paranoia or overthinking things when I smoke. I usually experience that like in my regular day. If I don't smoke, I'm like, I have overthought this shit way too many times. And so I smoke and then I'm like, all right. Like my partner will know when I haven't smoked. He'll be like, you haven't smoked, have you? And I was like, no. And like, even when I'm in silence, he knows, like, because I always have music on. I always have something to vibe to. And I'm like sitting there in silence. He can tell that I am like embodied in like a mental conundrum. And he'll make sure he like fix me a bowl or like a bong or roll up a joint for me. So it's better for me this way. Mm-hmm. I'm a better person.
You're a weed connoisseur for sure.
I am. Now I definitely know what's good weed and what's bad weed for sure. I'm very like connected to strains and growers and like all people in all processes of weed. So I'm very much extremely knowledgeable in that area. It's just I smoke to smoke also.
Oh, for sure.
For
absolutely.
Sure.
But you're also, I would say, a mushroom connoisseur.
Very much so also as well, yeah.
And you're smart as a whip.
I'd say I'm pretty decent.
You're very smart.
I'm pretty decent.
Graduated from Ohio
State,
pharmacy. Like, you're nothing to be fucked with.
No, I'm not. And I would say being in a science-based field and studying pharmacy was not something that like could be taken lightly. I just was always driven into like more science-minded things and understanding things. I think that there's power in just understanding what mushrooms does to your body and what cannabis does to your body as opposed to just makes me feel better. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of power in knowing plants and what you're consuming, pharmaceutical or non, you know.
When did you first discover like, oh, wait, this makes me feel better? Or because I think the couple of conversations I've had with you haven't been just like, oh, yeah, weed's great, mushrooms are great. It's more like these are medicines that should never have been illegal in the first place.
Correct.
And these medicines can access parts of your mind that are not only healing, but it's so expansive. So I've learned not only are you smart, and I would trust pretty much anything you said on this topic, but there are so many different perspectives. It is very polarizing. It's very disruptive. But when I hear you talk about it, I'm like, she makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
So looking back, when did you first make that connection of, wait, this shit actually is healing for trauma, and like this is going to be something that I use.
Yeah, it really wasn't until, to be honest with you, probably into my 30s. But I had already been a consumer all these years, but it was a moment that it dawned on me, like I had to kind of like replay my childhood, replay my teenage years, replay my college years, like all of those things to realize what was I connecting to that made that a healing mechanism, right? My first connection with cannabis was really through my father, who does construction but always used cannabis after work. And, he's swinging heavy equipment and concrete and in and out of building homes and all kinds of stuff. And my dad would just sit in his truck and he would smoke before he came in the house. And he would have dinner and have a shower and then go to bed. That was his routine. But I did not know that this was also helping my dad like reintegrate himself and like reground himself and feel his body and like help with the pain and his back and his shoulders and things like that. Never understood that. And then learning about cannabis the understanding of what cannabis does to your body and mushrooms and psychoactives is taught very limited, like in a very limited capacity in like pharmacy school or in chemistry or biology. Like, it exists, right? But you don't know that there is a whole endocannabinoid system, the way that it's being explained to us now, and the way the plant is being broken down to us now, and how the plant's endocannabinoids matches ours internally. Like, so you're finding out like all of this additional information, like growing up in an age where we were taught that like this was a drug. It's just drugs. Like mushrooms are drugs. Weed is drugs. Like I like to prefer to call it cannabis, but I'm not really a user of the word marijuana either, because that's also a slang term, but I prefer to call it by its actual name. You know what I mean? Because it is a plant it's older than a lot of our understandings. You know what I mean? And there's so many different ways that you can break this plant down, and to where some of it is psychoactive, some of it isn't, some can be used for this healing, some can be used for this. It's so much shit that like, I'm glad that they're teaching it now, but we just didn't have that understanding.
No, I remember in college, it's like, you want to do shrooms? And then this weird bag would appear, and then you'd stick it like in a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and eat it. And then next thing I know, I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, same thing with mushrooms for me. The first time I had it, I went to see Austin Powers, like when it came out. Like I was in high school. And I remember like we had a Snapple, because that's what everybody drank a Snapple. That was like the thing in high school when Snapple first came out. So I remember having a Snapple, and I remember having like whatever like chips that I had in candy. And I think we rolled it up in candy and just like chomped it, because it's a chomp. Like you're chomping. Mm-hmm. It is not a fun chew, okay? And if you're texturally sensitive, it is even further like a situation to get through. So I remember taking it, downing it with the Snapple. I would never recommend any of these methods today, right? And sitting there and watching this movie, and I was like, my first like, okay, so this is what shrooms feels like. It's way different from being high on cannabis. It's not like, it's just different. You know what I mean? To me, it's different. It's a very like, oh, wow, like things are brighter. You hear sound more crisp. You hear, like you see people's movements a little differently. You read and you feel energy differently. But before I was tapped into that space, I was like, all right, I'm going to put a pin in this because I like it for later in my life. You know what I mean? At 16, 17, that was my first shroom experience. I was 15 when I smoked weed for the first time. And then in college, I stopped doing everything after, maybe like, well, actually, I got pregnant. That's the reason why I stopped. So I got pregnant at 21. And I stopped doing everything because I wasn't really sure. And if I was pregnant at 21 with the knowledge I have now, I would do mushrooms. And I would smoke weed versus taking all of the other medications that I was given when I was pregnant. But yeah, what knowledge does. I mean, I was sold on the pharmaceutical space so big. I was like, yeah, give me what the doctor prescribed exactly.
Well, that's what
give it to me.
That's what 99% of people out there, if the doctor prescribes it, it's legit.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people are like, wait, cannabis, mushrooms? Like they judge it. They don't even.
Yeah, they judge it pretty harshly.
You know, and I think that's what's great about hearing you talk, because I think that there are a lot of medicinal reasons to use it.
Once you get over, I would say most adult experiences or teen experiences involve fun, okay? So I'm not going to deny you of fun. But the older you get, you realize it's not a game. Like, in the sense where, like, I need this for mental wellness. I need this for balance, for grounding. And I don't mean this, like, I mean it in a good way. But it's not like I'm just not out recreationally, like, taking mushrooms and tailgating. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Like, especially if the Bucks lose, I'm pissed. I'm even further pissed. Like, I don't want that. I don't want to feel anger on mushrooms. So, like, these things that I teach people now to use them in ways that are more beneficial to you as a person, not just recreational and partying. So
how was the High End Affair born?
So the High End Affair was born really off of the back of me doing Snoop Dogg's first party. I did Snoop's party. It's been, it's been almost 10 years ago, I feel like, that I did his first cannabis party for his launch of his magazine called Mary Jane. So it was a publication called Mary Jane. And so I get a call from a young woman that went to Ohio State. And she was involved with Snoop's management team in the launching of this new publication. And she said, hey, can you do a dinner for like 250 people? I was like, of course. You know, I'm not thinking weed, but like, you know, I'm already getting requests to do like large scale catering in like a lot of celebrity spaces. And I'm like, yeah, I can do 250. That's not a big deal. And she's like, no, all infused. And I was like, oh, okay. So here I am pulling my other brain into this project, because this is not just the chef brain. This is the science, biology, chemistry, pharmaceutical brain, and math that has to play into this. So I successfully did that event. And the funny thing is, that first event, like the sponsor of the weed brought me so much weed because they didn't know. They were like, the one thing that you should always know, that it doesn't take a pound of weed to reduce it into food. That could feed like 3,000 people. In the sense of getting high. Like, that's like, I don't need that much weed. So fine by me, because I'm over here like, shit, I'm over here like, how do I make it home with this? All right. So now I become like a unassuming drug trafficker back to Ohio.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. So, and I'm actually giving away weed by like Ziploc bagfuls to like the people that have worked for me, because I'm like, I can't travel with all this. So anyway, I get all this weed. I start reducing it down into, there's a process called decarboxylation, which is where you basically take the weed and you're extracting, like you're getting ready to extract the THC off of it and place it into an oil. So you decarb very low. It's almost like dehydrating it. And you can dehydrate it first and then add it into oil. And then old school, like crock pot or a pressure cooker. I have blown up plenty of crock pots in my house. I used to tell my kids, they were like, what does that smell? Like, it's just herbs. Like, my daughter's like thyme and like rosemary and sage. I'm like, yes, honey, yes. It's always so strong. Strong ass smell in our house. So anyway, this party, I break down all this weed. into oils, butters, like all the carrier oils that you need to attach cannabis oil to a lipid, so fats work like oils and butters. I break all that down, and I have all this weed left. Then I have other companies like, we have infused cookies. What could you do with that? I'm like, fuck, let me crush these cookies up and let me like make something of this. I'm doing all kinds of things. This shit was like Candyland of like a cannabis party. And so this is in LA, in Hollywood Hills, beautiful home. I think it was the CEO of Absolute Vodka's home. It was gorgeous. And we had all these wonderful people there. And so that was my first, like, okay, if I did it with them, then I can do this anywhere. But I needed to practice it a little bit more before I felt ready to, like, sell it to the public. And so I was practicing right here in Columbus, Ohio, and having these very low-key events that if you knew, you knew. You know what I mean? And then I like buried myself in the protection of like wealthier people. I'm like in the middle of New Albany. What y'all gonna do out here in New Albany? You coming for me or you coming for them? And so like I was in New Albany and I was in way up in Powell, but I was having them in places like, you know, that were a little bit less like noticeable. And I was only doing that because like, you know, like if I'm having a doctor's home, which I did, you know, he'll tell his neighbors and the neighbors are like, I think I want to come, you know, like that. And it kind of became a little who's who nuance very quietly. But Columbus was my test market for sure. Like a lot of people's test market is Columbus. But it was my test market to understand safety, to understand the levels of hospitality that I needed to have in steps to be successful in this event, because this event takes a lot of care and a lot of energy to keep people safe. And I have like very adult conversations with everyone. Like before anything is even served, it's gather around and people stand around and I give the same talk every party about adult responsibility and consumption. If you came with someone and the person that you feel like is getting a little too slumped, let me know. We will come and revive them. We have so many ways to bring you back.
Undo.
Yeah, we have undos.
Which I didn't even know until I met you that the undo was a thing. I could have used that multiple times in my life.
Yeah, you could have used undo. Undo's great. You know, even before undo, I mean, it was just like I would like 10 times the amount of CBD. You could use black peppercorns to like awaken the senses, and like there's so many different little ways. But we were always very much on top of, like, we know the food is good, number one. You cannot taste the weed in the food, number two. So you're going to, like, potentially go grab for another one. But if you follow the menu exactly how I've laid it out for you, and you have each and every thing, you'll know how many milligrams per thing you've had for the total of the evening. But when you start, like, reaching for other things, then it gets a little wonky, and then I have to come see you personally.
I would have a real problem.
Yeah, I come from behind the kitchen, I put my towel on my shoulder, and here I come to see you.
You're like, stop dabbling, stop nibbling.
And I'm kneeling next to you, and we're having a really good conversation. Whether you are coherent or not, I'm going to get you back. But that was important for me because a lot of people feel like they can smoke a ton of weed. But then, and they'll be fine at this party. And you're not. You won't be. Because smoking weed and consuming it by mouth is two different things. And on top of that, I not only give you food by mouth that is infused, you also have a rolling station. You have a dab bar. You have like other like cannabis experiences. We've had an igloo that mist like CBD, like isolate, like vapors into there. So you're walking into a hot box, or you're taking in vapors of cannabis. So there's so many ways and different types of activations that we create that are fun, but they also have weed in them. You know what I mean? So you really got to be choosy it's really the same thing as being at a bar or being at like some sort of like wine festival. And you're like, I want to taste this, I want to taste this, I want to taste this. But at some point, you're going to be like, hey, let me drink some water. Let me get some food. Yeah, and so I encourage adults to use that autonomy over themselves. But if you slip up, we got you. But I'm still giving you that talk. These days, like my last event, I pre-recorded it. So it already went out to you in an email so you can hear it quietly by yourself on your way to the party, while you're getting dressed. I'm going through the milligrams with you. I'm going through each course. I'm going through safety. So it's a solid 15-minute video that's giving you my talk before the party, just in case you miss it. Because some people do come late. And my party is never like an actual sit down. It's more like graze, move about. I do need to keep you moving. The longer you stay in a seat too long and get too comfortable, you know, like next thing you know, your sweater becomes a fucking blanket. And you're like, oh, I don't know, girl. Y'all go ahead. I'm having a good time over here. So it's hella interactive. Like, I mean, I've had everything from fire performers to contortionists to like, I mean, the music is always going, like always going. The last few series of the Hind Affair, I'm doing the high histories of. So I did the high history of house and techno music in Detroit. I also did like the high history of historic homes. So you're getting to walk through historic homes, doing historic home tours, high as shit. Like you can still have champagne, you can still have all these little vibes, caviar, all these things. But it's a good time. Like you're out there, you're dressed like a garden party. So these are very mature experiences. These are not stoner events. Like, I'm really thinking about this.
I have questions.
Okay, you have questions.
First of all, before we get too far from Snoop Dogg.
Yes.
Start your journey to parenthood with reproductive gynecology and infertility in Ohio. RGI offers IVF, surrogacy, genetic testing, and more, accepting all insurances and offering flexible payment plans. Your dream of parenthood begins with RGI's immediate, affordable care. Book now at rgiohio.com. What was it like being around Snoop Dogg? I think he's so cool.
Yeah.
Did you talk to him? Did he, what was it like being around Snoop?
Snoop's hella cool. And I've interacted with Snoop quite a few times, like a lot. Like, she just introduced my show I did a Weed Map show with Mike Tyson. So we still see each other periodically. Snoop, the funny thing about Snoop is he smokes hella, but he does not consume cannabis-infused food because he knows what his limit is, right? Like, he's also really thin. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, he also, like, that will go to his bloodstream a lot faster than smoking. So he knows his limit, his boundary. But we rolled up a couple fatties. Like, we were smoking, like, chimney smoking. And always, every time I see him, he's very gracious, very chill. I went to his 50th birthday party, which was like, it was a great party.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was a great fucking party. I can't, like, everybody was there. It's like, next thing you know, I'm looking, like, standing next to Jamie Foxx. And I'm saying what's up to Nas, and, like, Drake's dad was there. Like, it's just everybody you can think of it.
I don't even know if I would know how to act.
Yeah.
I would pretend. I think I'd probably pretend, but I'd be losing my mind.
Yeah, I think that that's, being high also keeps me in check.
Right.
Right.
Well, you're always around these people anyway. So I think for you, it's like it just becomes kind of the norm.
It does. It becomes a norm because ultimately, like, I mean, I think that humanizing everyone that I've worked for and been in interactions with has been very helpful because I really treat them like my regular homies.
Because they really just are people.
They really are.
And we put these expectations on them, then you get to know them too well, and you're like, oh. That's why I say, like, never meet your heroes.
Never.
Like, it's like, yeah, we're all just like imperfect beings.
I could ruin a lot of people's ideas.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, like, again, working in that space, and it becomes like, it's just normal. My job is to make sure you're supported and you felt like you were the king or the queen of, your event, your day, whatever. That's my job for anyone that hires me, yeah.
Well, if you ever need a sous chef, like somebody that like holds the trays,
That's not a sous chef
or whatever. Whatever they do, I'll do anything. I'll be like, I'll be out behind you cutting up whatever peppers, but I'll just be like,
if you're cutting with
real
two hands
quiet.
like this, it's giving
Listen, you
Benihana's.
don't want me in the kitchen at all. You should see how I cut an avocado.
Whoa.
Oh, you're gonna light up? I was gonna say, when are you gonna hotbox me?
Yeah, I'm gonna hotbox you in a
I
second.
really want to see if I get
you and an avocado.
If I get, oh no, it's not. I don't even cut. If you would see me in the kitchen, you would absolutely lose your mind.
Really?
So let's talk about these parties in Powell and New Albany, and so it's like this super low key. Everybody's into this, aren't they? Like so many people are into this, but it's kind of like you don't want to talk about it. It's like if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. Like people are very like, yeah, I smoke.
10 years from now, it's not going to matter.
It's not going to matter.
It's going to be so mainstream.
Yeah, if you think about, let's talk about alcohol and prohibition. Like when the first time they're like, okay, great, alcohol's legal. You guys have at it. There was still a little, and then the churches were like, like everybody was just like, you know what I mean.
So what would you say though to these people who drink daily, like, and they want to judge people who smoke or do shrooms? There's a lot of that.
Oh, there's so much
shame.
Judgment. Man, I mean, I think that
God, that smells good.
Growing up religious, it's some pretty good weed. Growing up in church and in religion, I know the feeling of being judged. That's it. Like, it's just judgy as fuck. You know what I mean? Because, like, at the end of the day, I can run through so many things that I could judge churches for. And I say churches because I don't really want to blame religions, but, like, churches are they execute the thoughts to the masses. You know what I mean? And when you're condemning things, but, like, secretly also doing them, is also my favorite.
Oh, no, the hypocrisy of it all. So we've walked through the cannabis aspect of what you do. My hot take is that if I'm ever doing a dinner like this, I would want someone like you who absolutely could keep people safe and knows what the hell they're doing.
You're keeping people safe.
But the other aspect of this is just the food.
Yeah.
So where the hell did you learn to cook, and where did that passion start?
Yeah. Man, so like cooking for me has always been something that has been, I can connect to my source of like my grandmother. My mother is a survival cooker. She will get you. I'm still alive, right? She got me through. She's a crock pot queen. She used to be like, set it and forget it. Just put it in the crock pot, go to work, come back. And then next thing you know, we got a roast or we got turkey or like whatever. But my grandmother and my dad, on my dad's side, she was put on a long apron, all day cooking. She was definitely the scratch cooker in the family. And then I have also a stepmother. She's deceased now, but like my stepmom, she was very good in the kitchen too. And so like I just had women around me that cooked very well. They were also really good entertainers. Like everyone around me knew how to throw a good party. Like my grandmother, of course, get the gold forks and cutlery out. Get the golden line china and the crystal glasses for water and the actual pictures and things like that. We had a whole fucking buffet wall at my grandmother's house that had all different types of settings in there. And so that was my first thing, like, okay. And then I would also like peer into other like families, like especially Black families, like, what do y'all do on Sunday dinners? And they're like, same thing, just a different version of this, and we do it this way. So I'm like listening to them, but I was understanding the culture of like the community of food, essentially. And so my grandmother would, have me pull up a stool and, like, why do you have the eggs room temperature, Grandma? Like, why is the butter soft? Like, she would just explain these things to me Why do you use Swan cake flour and not regular AP flour? I remember having those questions, but at the same time, I'm not also realizing those questions are also very scientific based as well, because, the art of baking is very much chemistry, smoking meats and like all of these things. It's I see it in a very sciencey way randomly. So even though I enjoyed those experiences, I thought to myself one time, like, my mother would never agree if like I just decided to be a chef. And so I remember saying to my mom, like, hey, I want to go to like get an application for Cordon Bleu. And I said to my dad too. He's like, what? Yeah, like, no, there's no money in that. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, you're right. There's not. And my mom's looking at me like, I put you in all these fucking private schools for you to be a chef? No. Like, I know she didn't say that exactly, but it was just that eyebrow that was like, yeah, do what you want. But make sure you get Ohio State's application. Like, make sure, like, all of the other things in place. Like, my mom would let me, like, leave me space to fuck off in my mind of what I thought I wanted to do, but what you're really doing here is this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but that was, like, I always enjoyed, like, connecting with food, setting the table, like, Sunday dinners, and just feeling the way that laughter would be in meals and, like, camaraderie and, like, just family vibes. That was just my shit. Like, I loved to sit down dinner. And, like, when I was with my mom, I didn't typically have that because it was just her and I. And she was like, I could eat, like, in my room. Or, like, I can eat at the couch and watch TV. It was something when my grandmother made us sit at the table.
Yeah. I feel that, too. That's why I sometimes wish I could cook. See,
yeah.
I think maybe now I'm high.
You
See, I'm pondering now. I'm pondering my life. I'm pondering what I should be doing. I'm high.
It's just one of those things that, like, it's probably the most overthought thing in the house. I mean, at home for my children, like, it's like if your mother was a stylist or a hairdresser, it's like you would expect her kids to always have the best hair, the best fashion. My kids, like, they don't want, like, overly fancy shit. And even in their, like, late teens, early 20s, they're still like, can you make some spaghetti?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
But you probably make a mean spaghetti, though.
I do make a mean spaghetti. And then my dumb ass will be like, roasting tomatoes and, like, I'm doing all the things.
There's no jar.
I'm doing like early, like trad wife shit, but I'm really just my own wife. You know what I'm saying?
You're like the one girl, or her name's escaped me, that we talked about that everybody hates on. She's like, my husband was looking forward to some pasta, so I spent 48 hours making the yeast.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you do.
No, like, so the other night my daughter goes, I want steak frites. I was like, what? For real? She's like, yeah, steak frites, Mom. I'm like, okay. And the other daughter's like, ramen. I'm like, well, we got two different price ranges here. Like, we doing ramen or we doing steak frites? It was my daughter's. She's in LA now, so she spent it's her last weekend at home, so she won. So here I am, up at going to Littleton's Market, getting steaks at 6 p.m. and 6 or 7 for my last minute, like, steak frites meal. And so my daughter goes, no, this is not the story behind this. It's not Littleton's. I was like, so what is it? She's like, you went out to the pasture. You grabbed a cow. You slaughtered it. Also, while you were doing that, I went and grabbed potatoes out of the ground. She's like, this is your origin story. This is how we're going to tell people you made the steak frites today. I was like...
But speaking of Littleton's, that's like probably your jam.
I love Littleton's.
I mean, that's an elevated... But, like, everything in there is so, like, they have the olive oils from the garden.
They do. I think I went on a Friday night. Last Friday. And I did not know the ladies were in there lit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they're in their cocktails. They're in there, like... I was like, oh, excuse me, UA. You guys are up in here just
to improve the atmosphere.
Having a little vibe. Yeah, so, and I like the market specifically because they have a lot of my favorite people from around the city working there that are contributing to, like, in the case of like 3 Bites Bakery is like one of my favorite bakeries. And she's just like in like right off of Mount Vernon, but she does a lot of cakes there. And so I love her. I love Chris. He's the fishmonger. I've followed Chris from like a bunch of different fish markets in the past.
Don't you love the name fishmonger?
I do.
See, I am high.
I do. Fishmonger is a great word. You did got a little contact.
But I mean,
yeah,
fishmonger.
Mm-hmm. It's a great word.
What do you do? I'm a fishmonger.
I like it.
I love it.
I do really like it.
I miss my calling.
Yeah, you really did. You could have been a fishmonger.
You said you got some contact.
I'm saying you got a little bit, but yeah, in there it's great. I mean, and then there's a guy named James. He does the meat. It's an older black man. He's really sweet. He's always very congenial, and I just enjoy the neighborhood feel.
I love the name.
The chef back there, she's cool. And then the pastry chef, I know him very well. So I felt like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, I see you, UA, with a little vibe.
Well done, Littletons.
I would say that.
Well done, UA.
Cheers.
So let's move on to shrooms because...
Yeah, let's move on to shrooms.
Here's what I'm thinking. I may dabble in a little... I have to see what it does to me, but I don't want like a hallucinating weird thing. But if here's the way it's been described to me. You take a tiny bit, and then everything just seems a little brighter, a little lighter. It's like fun. You're laughing. That might be more my vibe.
Okay. Perfect. That's a great place to start, though. You know, like, unless you're, like, going into plant medicine with the understanding that you need to do, like, serious work on yourself, then you start where you need to do work. But if you want to build up to like the understanding and being comfortable and also like being in like community with mushrooms and like, oh, I see, like this is a good intro. You do start off lighter. A lot of people start with microdoses that could be as low as like 0.10, 0.2. I typically take, if I do a microdose, mine is a little higher, like a half a gram or a gram. But I do, even in my micro spaces, I like to feel a little bit of, you know, just a little bit of like sensory in my experience. So it's almost like somebody just turned that one light on that I couldn't get. It was like all the way up there. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I do like to feel that. But some people don't like to feel it at all. They just like the micro amounts. You're still getting neurocognitive effects, and you're still getting, you know, like it's still working in your body. But they'd rather like be there with it, and some people like to actually feel the push. So you're somewhere in between. But right there, I would. Like the most experience I would probably give you would be a half a gram to a gram. That's just enough to feel like, oh, hey,
yeah,
I see you. Like you would probably be in the mirror 1 second, like and being like, okay, yep, all there, we are good. It's just a natural like thing just to go like, I always look at myself in the mirror, and it's not like with disgust. It's always like, yep.
Yeah. But it's for some people, so you've seen at how it can access into people's brains and minds and kind of help in that way in lieu of what you would normally get from the doctor. So I think that's what people, I don't think they understand that part.
Yeah, they definitely don't understand it. I think that there's so much around mushrooms. There's so much stigma around mushrooms. There's so much like propaganda. There's so much like behavioral, cartoony correlations to like what you would experience. Like people automatically go to like a cartoon in their head and rainbows and like la 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 la, and I saw a troll and like, wow, what was that? It's like, what the fuck? I've never experienced that. I'm not even joking. I've never experienced that. And like I think that like when your mind takes you to those places, it's very psychosomatic. So you like trick your brain into thinking like, I'm going to have this one experience this way. And so you go into it and you're really hoping like you see some wild shit. And then mushrooms, it's like, not so fast, girl. Like, we're not here to do all of that. Let's assess. So your first, like almost your first intros into mushrooms is a lot of assessment of like feeling your body and you reconnecting with your body and your person inside of you and your spirit. And it's not, it could be childlike, it could be pensive, it could be sad, you could feel all of the things, but whatever you feel, it was quite necessary for you to go through that.
Could people then do like a dinner with shrooming too, or does it not work that way?
Yeah, absolutely. It can work that way. It can work that way. But it's not like a very high dose of mushrooms.
Yeah.
Because there's a part where it still can be really light and still really like conversational before it switches to like therapeutic and switches to like you need to have a seat. Mm-hmm. And it switches to like, wow, right? So there's a lot of like different like one of the greatest teachers that we have in the mushroom community. His name is Baba Kalindi, but I remember him saying something like to the effect is like, do you want to feel like the distance between like, hey, I'm just in the state versus I'm in the country versus I'm in the world versus I'm outer space versus another dimension versus like, where do you want to be with this?
Yeah.
Right? And so for dinners, and because I do experiences where I merge the both of them, where I will give you mushrooms no more than a gram, and then also cannabis in connection with that. I do believe the two of them should coexist in these type of experiences because there's a balancing that happens. I am almost always certainly, like before I go into a big mushroom journey, I already have like 5 joints rolled up easily because like there's a way that you can go up here, but then cannabis will be like, hey, grounding. You're still here on earth. Trust me. Like, so cannabis is always my grounding mechanism. It's like my tether to earth, outside of something that I typically have in my hand. But parties are very soft. They're very light. I don't need you considering a lot of life choices here. Okay. I do need you to be able to experience a release. Like it is okay to release some heaviness, right? But I create things for you to have fun in that time. Like here's aura photography. Go take a picture of your aura before and after. Things like that. So they're a little bit more thoughtful. Like, and people are like, oh, there's an aura photography lady at this party. Like, oh, fuck. Like that's my new like photo booth. You know what I mean? Like I'm just trying to like also get you in like also a happy, serene space.
Yeah, it's like high touch.
Yeah.
I mean, you're putting like surprise and delight into it. The devils and the deets.
Yeah.
So what, as we're approaching 54 minutes.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
No.
See, we're in a time warp.
Yeah.
You and we're in a time warp. I feel like we need to see more of you. Mm-hmm. And I know you do a lot of cooking in the kitchen.
I do.
Which puts you you're a behind the scenes magic maker, kind of pop your head out here and there. What's on the horizon? And can we get more and see more of you?
I'd say, yeah, for sure. I am enjoying, the horizon as it's approaching. Because I know that I'm moving into another little segment of my life of being more intentional in the mushroom and cannabis space and, being more of a presence in that space. And of course, food, because these vehicles are the greatest tools in my tool case, in my toolbox. So I would say I have things that will involve a lot more content coming. I have things that will be involving a lot more like that you could hear from me in smarter ways that are not behind the stove.
Oh, and I can't wait.
I don't know how else to put that, but yeah, y'all will see. You know, but I'm still going to be out there. Like, you're still going to be able to catch the Hind Affair. I am looking forward to doing my first one in Thailand, so that is, like, new. So I'll be able to put together, like, hey, come to Thailand. And
I'm available.
Have this experience
I'm available.
with us.
Mm-hmm.
You're available.
Don't worry, in case you're worried. I'm available.
Are you sure?
Thailand. I'm ready. I mean, I am ready to knife, hold,
Benihana,
and juggle. I can do it all.
It's giving circus.
Hey, if that's what you need.
I just need you to write down all your capabilities.
They're pretty limited.
Yeah. In any space, entertainment, whether you think it could be entertainment.
They're pretty limited, trust me. Well, I'm just happy the universe put us together. Yeah. And I believe deeply in that.
Yeah. I think so too. I feel like a lot of people think it's almost like what do you call it? Where like you see somebody in a place, but you don't know that they live there. It's kind of like like a folklore. People don't realize that I still live here because I'm mostly everywhere but Ohio.
Yeah.
But trust me, I sleep just right around the corner from here.
You and I are neighbors. We're literally neighbors. Yeah.
I'm not far from here. And my parents are still in, my dad's in Columbus, my mom's in Cincinnati, so I'll be around.
Thank you for your first appearance on the Carrie Croft Show. I'm going to say that because I'm just going to put the stake out there that it's not going to be your last.
Not going to be my last. Okay, part one.
I appreciate you. You've already kind of, helped to expand this nugget of mine.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Anything else for the peeps at home before we wrap up?
I know you guys got questions. Send them to Carrie.
Yeah. It's a huge topic, and people are curious, and it's okay to be curious. And if you feel shame around it, I mean, there are people like you who are educated in it who do not judge. It's
a real conversation.
It's all good.
It is all good, and it's nothing to be afraid of.
No.
It's nothing to be bashful about. I think that if you have questions, send them to Carrie. I will come back on your show and answer your questions.
Let's do, so the next, see how I hook her in? I'm doing the soft sell. So the next show we'll answer questions about it. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, if you're still out there following your girl, follow me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, keep moving.
Yep.
I love a contact buzz.
Right.
Because you're kind of like snorkeling along the bay.
Shit.
You're not like totally in the ocean.
You're not.
It's kind of good.